Hello and welcome to Chess with Simon. I'm Simon. There has been a lot going on. There's been new challenges coming in. There's lots of interesting games going on. Okay, this one. So I've been playing the Grunfeld, and we're not going to play the Grunfeld now. We're going to play Bishop G7. Yes, we are. Which may possibly take us towards a King's Indian defence. Now, I've got some things to say about the King's Indian defence. The first thing to say is this. People often describe it as an aggressive opening. I don't think it is aggressive at all. I think black is minding his or her own business. I mean, look, let's say it goes like this, which it often does. D6, basically just to stop e5. Just, you know, to stop e5. Let's say knight f3, let's say castles. Black's just minding his own business in this case. What it does is it gives white enormous choice as to what to play. So white can play virtually anything against it. And in some cases, white does play aggressively, in the hope of exploiting black's play, where black has basically taken no interest in the centre. So for instance, white might play the classical variation or the four-pawn attack even, or even the Zamish can be very sharp. But in a sense it's up to white. And so I think that what black's doing is a bit like a bullfighter really. You're sort of encouraging white to make it an interesting, well, I think solid games can be interesting too. You're encouraging white to make it an aggressive, unbalanced game. But you know, white can play like this, castle, g3, nothing wrong with that at all. I think Botvinnik used to play like this, you know. It's an interesting game, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's an aggressive game. So anyway, that's a lot of talking, but all of that is to say that I am playing the King's Indian, but not believing it's some kind of sort of, I mean, the character of the struggle will be determined by my opponent's choices, and actually that's always true, but it's particularly true in the King's Indian because you're not putting direct pressure on the opponent's position, whereas in the Grunfeld, I want to play the Grunfeld now, in the Grunfeld to an extent you are, and particularly in, you know, things like the Queen's Gambit declined, where you're actually occupying the centre. I mean, for what it's worth, I think the Grunfeld's probably an objectively better move, and the engines would tend to prefer the Grunfeld, would prefer the Grun. The engines don't really like the King's Indian, frankly. But I don't believe the King's Indian is losing. I mean, I don't believe that, you know, white wins with best play in the King's Indian. We're going to find out. Oh! And that's really clever because I have been playing the Grunfeld, so I guess both lines. Okay, well in that case we're going to do this. I know it's against our rules, but there you go. This one against Joseph, I'm going to keep sort of saying that I think now we win this rook ending, but there's a bit of work to do, but my instinct is that white's going to win this rook ending, and it's going to end with our king penetrating and winning these pawns because the black king will get deflected by a passed pawn over here. I mean, if the rooks were off, it's definitely a one ending for white. With the rooks on, I still think it is because my rook's in a good position behind the pawn. Okay, this game against Keith, I'm going to do something that's going to make him sad and me sad. We're both making each other sad, which is that you can play king f8, you can play queen e7, and queen e7 actually takes... I don't want to play king takes, I want to play bishop takes. Okay, I mean maybe king takes is better because then the bishop keeps guarding the pawn. Knight c3. Okay, how did white win this? Really? I mean, I quite like black here, don't you? I don't know. Okay, so I suppose we could do that, right? We put the queen in the way and just take. But the thing is, what I'm going to do, there is a line in here as well. Look, knight e3, just put the knight in the way. Then basically what happens is you win the two bishops. You win the two bishops. Queen takes. Bishop takes. Look at that. And it's basically equal pawns, sort of both got a good pawn structure. Black's got the two bishops. I would say black has a slight advantage. So it's a shame, isn't it, to do that in the King's Gambit, but you know, that's what's interesting about chess. Positions can change their character. and there are actually quite a lot of King's Gambit lines where the queens come off. Okay, I thought about this. Queen h4. I think it's preferable to g5 because I think it's sort of hitting that pawn. And I think you may sometimes come down here, although not really so much. I think black's a bit better here. Nice bishop. You know, I mean, don't tell anybody. But, oh no, if that pawn wasn't there, you couldn't take here check because the rook's covering it. But you know, in general, that bishop, I quite like the line that bishop's on, and it's kind of cemented. So there's also a tactic in the position that I know Nigel's seen, so I don't need to remind anybody of it. But can you see the tactic in the position? Okay. Here, so Liam's moved his king. Liam's moved his king like this. What about knight here, check? So can the rook take it? And then if the king goes here, I think we go here, and I think you hold that pawn endgame. So it's important to look at the forcing lines. So I think you can go knight here, and then where's the king going to go? Just back off or something? I mean, I might end up being wrong about this. I'm not sure about this, but I suspect, I'm suggesting this could be possible to be a draw. And maybe I shouldn't risk even allowing the exchange of pieces, but I think that's drawn. How is that not drawn? Come on, you got to be brave. Let's call his bluff. What do you think, Liam? Am I going to live to regret this? I've got so many regrets in life. This is not going to be one of them. Talking of regrets, okay, this one, I think Gary's played this ever so well. I think we've got a problem. If we just approach with the king. So here's what can't happen. This pawn push doesn't work because we take here. Rook moves don't really work. You can't move the rook away because this drops. But the problem is, I think this pawn push works. So for instance, if you take here with the bishop, you can sack the rook and the knight cannot catch that pawn. And if you take here with the knight, you can probably just push. And the pawn is very hard to catch. What do you do? If anyone clever, I know there's a lot of clever people watch this video, if anyone clever could work out, but I do not believe this thing can be stopped. These pawns are so dangerous. So consequently, I'm going to take a rash choice, which was trailed on a previous show, which is I'm going to take. And then, when black takes back the sacrificed piece, which I assume black will do, although, oh yeah, because now when you push, I take it. When black takes back, I'm going to take here. I'm going to try and hold this. Now, I suspect that mathematically this is one for black, so we're going to have fun watching black do that, because I don't think it's easy, but it'll be good for both of us, won't it? But I think you have to do this, because otherwise I think you're losing by force, and we don't like to lose, particularly not by force. Okay, I just sacked a piece, got to recover from that. Okay, I mean, Justin, rook d1. Yeah, rook d1. So, what do I think will happen after rook d1? I mean, what could well happen is this, and this. And that wouldn't be the end of the world, frankly. What could also happen is this, and then this. No, that's a bad move. That will not happen. I guess the game goes on then. The problem with this is that black can just take it, and it's a disaster. Who do I think's better? I mean, I think it's probably kind of equal. Do I want to defend my pawn with my rook? Not really. Why not? Good question. I'm going to have to think about that. And, you know, I'll think about it. I'll come back to it. I know I should know, but it's a tricky position. Okay, this one, I'm afraid my opponent's accidentally dropped a piece. We talked about this in the last episode. But taking here leaves the bishop undefended, and so I'm going to take it with the queen. I think I'm a piece up now. That's my claim. Justin. Okay, this one. Oh, Gareth, such class. Good move. So, looks like black's coming on the king's side. They all play g3 here. Look, I've just learned by looking at the Explorer. Why don't you play this? Why don't we play this? Who knows why? But they don't. They all play g3. So we just follow the a5. Black always wins or draws. Knight d2. Not that simple. Okay, but it's one game. df6. c5. Wow. That's intense. Okay. I think, to be honest with you, if that's what we're being told, that's what we're being told. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Come on then. I mean, I always have to give in. We're going to play this move, and we're going to start covering the light squares on the black king side. How about that for an idea? That's what we call decisiveness. And we're defending the pawn c4, and we're not deciding what to do with the rook yet. I mean, you might get something like rook a2. Well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Ian's taken my queen, and I don't have any checks, so I've got to take his queen, and he'll have programmed the next move because he's that kind of person. I mean that in a nice way. He takes here, I take, he takes, I take. And I'm actually claiming I've got a slightly better game here. 2 bishops, better pawn structure. Not too bad, eh? Not too bad, but you got to take the queen, I think. And then, Ian, you take the knight. What? Okay, here, I'm not going to play h6. No, I'm not going to play h6. I'm going to play b4, and I don't understand why that's not a good move. But I'm sure Ian's going to show me. Should I play h6? Would you play h6 here? Is it just weakening? Does white just leave it there? I mean, if it was, as you know, I play too much bullet. I think white leaves it there. That's the point. Because when you take, pawn takes, then the knight's got to move, and then you got to check here, and white's got at least a draw, and we don't want to give white at least a draw. We're going to play the hacker move. It's an obvious move, isn't it? And because I'm an obvious person, I'm going to play it. This one, Nick, I believe I want to play e4. That's what the rook's there for. Oh, wow. And that's what everyone does. Yeah, it looks like e4 in this position. Beautiful. Again, we have some lovely sort of positional struggles, don't we? d4. d4 is in the wind, depending on what black does, but d4 is a distinct possibility. Ian, that's not all of them already. Does it go so quickly? Does time fly that quickly when you're having fun? And it really is fun. Okay, let's see. Are there any? There must have been one or two I've forgotten. Nigel. Oh, this one we're waiting for a move. I'm lucky enough to be a piece up. This one I've just sacked a piece. I'm hoping to hold on. This one we're waiting for my opponent. Oh, Horde. On the Horde one, we're waiting for Horde Coach to come back, but just for the record, we'll just talk to Horde Coach. Let's look at the rest. Oh, there's games against Stuart. That's right. So let's quickly go back. So Stuart was very decent and decided he had enough of the previous game, which I think is right. I was lucky enough to win this one. What happened? Well, what happened was there was a tactic, and then essentially we got in a position where white was a pawn up and probably even had a better position. So, because black didn't have much counterplay. So, should we... castle. So queen e2 was a bad move by me. Can't explain why I played it. I mean, what should I have played here? a4. Ah, I see that. You see a4. You know, undermining that structure. Bishop takes f6. Don't get that, but seems to be a good move. Queen e2. Engine hates it. Okay. Still wants to play a4. Wants to play c5. Yeah, c5 is always a good freeing move. Didn't like this queen move. Didn't like Maris. Well, wanted to play knight e5. I see why, because then the black knight can't take, because then when you take back, that bishop's in a tricky spot, isn't it? Now, wow, it really likes white. Here, look, it sees it all. Computers are like this, though, aren't they? And actually, we sort of played what can only be described as the computer line, except it wanted queen c2 here. It didn't want to sack the bishop. We did look at queen c2. Essentially, the point here is it keeps the bishops on. But to be honest with you, they're both decent moves. It's just that it wanted to keep the bishops on, probably because white bishop was a slightly better piece. Stuart called it a day here. So the thing is, we're going to play some more against Stuart. He's challenged. We've got 2 challenges going. I think I've accepted them. Or we've got a challenge going, and let's have a look. Here it is. The point is, I was white last time. Stuart's going to be white this time. We're going to play another one with me as white. Now, oh no, this one's been aborted. That's fine. That's good, good, good. So we're going to play one. But just for the record, if I was playing Stuart again as white, I would probably have done something different, but probably not e4, because I think Stuart plays the French. And the thing is, I always struggle with the French, because against the French, you always think you're better, because basically the French blocks in the Queen's bishop. You always think you're better. And this is something I share with Bobby Fischer. So, you know, you always think you're better, but then frustratingly, you don't do that well against it. You know, it really winds me up. And sometimes you want to try to prove that you're better and you over push. I think this is what French players want you to do, and not just French players. I think it also applies to Scandinavian and other openings. You over push and you end up losing. It's really annoying. So I actually think I would have probably have played... Don't know what I would have played against Stuart this time. Anyway, we'll come to that. But at the moment, on this occasion, Stuart's white. I believe Stuart's a d4 player, which kind of fits with the kind of French Queen's Gambit decline view of the world. So I will be thinking about what to play against d4. But, you know, we have various ideas. We have various ideas of what we can play. So this one, going back to chess.com. So this is 4-pawn King's Indian. So we played a little tactic here, which we found very amusing, which is knight here. Queen can't take it, and if the knight takes it, the rook goes. And what this tactic is really about, I think my opponent responded correctly. What this tactic is really about is just freeing ourselves a bit, because we've got less space, and so if we go into kind of analysis mode, oh, the computer's struggling a bit here. The computer is really struggling with all the work that it's having to do. Hang on. Okay. I think now I've closed live chess, it might be a bit easier for it. I could also get a bigger computer, eh? But to be fair to it, it's got a lot to do. Okay, so the thing is, I've got less space, and so exchanging pieces is a good idea. So what I would imagine happening is takes, queen can't take, bishop takes, queen here. Who knows what will happen then, but probably white will probably take it because this pawn's hanging too. So what you've got then is, you know, an endgame where I've got a weak pawn that black probably can't get at. And, you know, I can get to work on that really. So I think I'm just going to, I mean, it's boring, but I think it's correct. And we need to be correct. If we're not correct, we've got nothing. This one, I think this looks like creates a bit of space around the king. So I'm going to move here and try to invade here, which I think is going to cause black some discomfort. I mean, should we do some variations? Come on, let's do some variations. We go here. Black pushes. Check. I don't know. I mean, king here. Well, probably something like this isn't a bad move. I don't know. What else would you do? Just move this here now. Maybe you do. I mean, maybe... Or maybe you move the knight here. I'm changing my mind, aren't I? Okay. My instinct is we move the bishop there now. The point, I think, is this. Takes, 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 takes. Oh, I can't tell. We'll come back to it. Let's see if our subconscious mind can take a view on this. This is not a bad move, but it's not really a critical line, is it? So I think we can just play like c6. I suppose we could play knight b d7 as well, and then play for e5. But I think white's going to play d4, don't you? But what does c6 even do? I mean, that's not even... I mean, we could play c5, but that's not really how I handle this line. It's definitely correct, though. If you go into the opening book, I think about it. I'm going to think about a lot of these. Okay, this one I'm not going to think about. Bishop g2. Very natural. This one, there's been a few moves actually. So my opponent did this clever thing where he exploited the pin. But now we've swapped down here, and I think white is really looking pretty good here. I think we can just push a pawn, can't we? Because what can black do? I think we can just push to get these pawns rolling. I don't think, even if you push the pawn here, I can just come and attack it. I just think these pawns got to roll. Well, okay. Push the pawn here. I suppose you've got to go here then, haven't you? And then you sort of... Yeah, I mean, it's fine. And then black's very passive. I think, you know, getting a pawn moving is going to be fine. My king is close enough to stop any funny business. Now, what you don't want is a pawn push and then a rook down here, and then, you know, queening a pawn. But my king is close enough to stop any of that business going on. This is a nice position now. Don't know what to do with it. Oh, interesting stuff's happened with Josh. This is really clever. It's a good move by my opponent. Just a simple improving move. And I think... because obviously now if I take that, I improve the pawn structure. So I need to think about what to do with that. This one, my opponent's castle, but I think I've got lots of chances to... So I've got this weird free pawn. So first thing I looked at was queen here, and if the queen takes, I win because I fought the rooks, but that doesn't work because you can just play rook here. But what about just rook here, queen there? I mean, of course, black can push like this, but white's got quite a bit of pressure around the black king. So I think some kind of rook lift is very natural. I don't think you can hang on to this pawn forever, but it's an extra pawn, right? Isn't it? Let's count the pawns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, it's an extra pawn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, it's an extra pawn. So I think combining hanging on to that with some kind of kingside pressure feels like it's going to yield benefits. This is the game with Josh. So basically, okay, so I messed up, or Josh played well. Bishop here was bad because queen there attacks the bishop and checkmate. Got to stop the checkmate. Took the bishop, took the bishop, took the bishop. Now it's my move. And I suppose I'm looking at two moves here. The first is rook takes pawn. Looks pretty strong. And we've got 2 pawns for the piece, and we've got some serious threats around that king. The second thing is I'm wondering if queen here doesn't just almost checkmate outright, because it's checkmate next move. King here, you have got a check. You know, you got some real threats going on. So the point is, he's played really well. He's won a piece, but I've certainly got some threats in exchange. I suspect White's winning here, but I'm not sure of that. And because basically the Black's vulnerable king was a positional advantage which helped me get through. Well, may help me get through, despite the fact that I made an outright blunder. Don't know what to do here. I've done this. I think all that remains at this point is to do a tactics problem. We'll come back to these ones. Okay. Let's do a puzzle. Okay, it's Black's move. Right. So there's a check on F2, forcing move, king goes in the corner. And then what happens? Oh, I'll tell you what else we can do. We can take on A2. And so, for instance, if we took on A2 and the rook took, then you'd have a check on F2 and then you'd be mating on F1. If you took on A2 and the queen took, then you've got a check on F2 but not much happens. What about if we check on F2 and then we take the knight? Isn't that just a piece? I mean, that's good, right? Okay, I'm going to play it, even though frankly I'm not sure of it, but it just looks like it's a piece to me. Check on F2, take the knight. Anybody got any problem with that? Dear viewer? Ah, it goes on. Okay, so now the obvious, not the obvious, but a move is taking here, king there, double check. Then the king goes in the corner. It's no, none of it really works. Okay. This knight is pinned. This bishop's attacking. So the first question is, can you just move the queen away? Or then will white intensify the pin, blah, blah. Or the really dramatic one is you just take here. Then if the queen takes, you take the bishop. And if the rook takes, check. No, it doesn't work. So takes here, rook takes. No good. What about if we just move a knight here, with a view to then moving the knight away and then the knight defending the queen? If you just move the knight here, sorry, move the queen here, and then whatever white does, you can just move the knight away to defend the queen. Oh, I love chess. So we're not going to check here because queen's going to take it. We're going to move here. We're just going to bank our extra piece and say that's all very boring. That's all not boring. That was fun. I hope you're all well and hope to see you all soon.